Welcome back. And joining us right now is Professor Kingsley Moghalu. He's a political economist and thought leader as well. He joins us on the program from Washington, D.C. We'd like to thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin. You're in the U.S. and currently undergoing the required self-isolation after testing negative to COVID-19 before departing Nigeria. Tell us about your experience with assessing the portal, the processes, the procedure of the COVID-19 tests before your departure.
Well, thank you. Obviously, COVID-19 is a great and difficult challenge of our time. And like every other citizen, caught up in its restrictions. Before I traveled out of Nigeria, I had to register at the NCDC portal to do a rapid test. And then, of course, that registration assigns you to one of the several labs where you can do a very credible test, what they call a PCR test. Gave me an appointment, and on that date, I went and took the test. It's actually a drive-by test somewhere in Lagos on Victoria Island. And then I waited for the result. The results came 2 days later, I think. And then I traveled a couple of days later out of the country. Now, obviously, you cannot board a flight, certainly on British Airways, which was the airline I used, without presenting evidence of a negative COVID test. Also, you have to fill out what they call a locator form, a travel locator form, which gives you basic contact information and so on and so forth. So, in the most part, I think these processes are followed, and I think they're helpful, even if we cannot have 100% guarantee. Now, of course, when I arrived in the United States two days ago in the evening, I went straight into self-isolation, even though I tested negative, because that is the requirement for most international trips, that you should isolate yourself for at least 7 days post-arrival. Coming into Nigeria, you will also do the same thing. You will isolate yourself 7 days after, and then you go and take a test to show whether or not you're positive or negative. So right now, I'm in isolation. I'm in the same building with the same house, the same home with my family, but I'm not seeing my wife and my children. We speak mostly through the phone. They cook for me and leave it at the door, and then I take it and eat it. And so I'm here alone. It's tough.
It's a sort of house arrest in your house.
Yes, indeed. It's a tough thing to do. And the truth is, if you don't do it well, nobody will monitor you effectively, because this is, for example, you're in your own home. So it's a question of your own sense of discipline and your own sense of commitment, to public health, whether you want to discipline yourself in this manner. Yes, I'm going to be here in isolation for 7 days, talking to my wife and children by phone upstairs. Really painful to be in the same house with your family.
If you look at perhaps some of the policies laid down, and this is over here in Nigeria by the NCDC, the PTF, other relevant agencies, do you think that there are sufficient measures to reduce the spread of the second wave, especially with the new variants?
Well, I know that this NCDC and the COVID task force, I know they've tried and they are trying their best. However, there's a big problem in Nigeria. Certainly all through December and in January, I saw, moving around in the country over the Christmas period, a lot of people simply do not take the proper precautions against COVID. Many people, you were just reporting Chief Iwanyang, Emmanuel Iwanyang, giving a press conference talking about the situation in Imo State and his community. And this is very unfortunate. I believe that the public enlightenment, I believe that the enforcement of COVID prevention procedures should be stepped up in Nigeria. For example, why would you say you are doing NIN registration at various centers, and massive crowds come there because they're trying to get their national identification number because they are afraid that their SIM card will be cut off if they don't do that. This is very reckless in my view. And these are the kinds of things that are, super spreader events for COVID. And these are things being mandated by government agencies, but they will not make sure that people stand in line. They will not make sure that people are 6 feet apart. They will not make sure that everybody's wearing a mask. No. Instead, we see pictures of crowds, masked together. This is irresponsible. So I think the NCDC and the PTF are doing their very best, but there's a problem in the Nigerian society of education, especially among the lower classes, the poor people. Many of them do not take the proper precautions against COVID. This was my experience. And over the Christmas period, several people that I know lost their lives. And they don't even understand that this second wave of COVID is far more devastating than the first wave. So it's very unfortunate. Yes, NCDC is trying its best, but enforcement in public spaces, I find not good enough.
All right, we'd like to thank you so much, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, political economist, thought leader. Thank you for your thoughts at this time.
Thank you very much for having me.